Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos and our video worship for Sunday, October 4th, 2020. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome as part of our community. If you are coming to us for the first time through these video worships, I invite you to connect with us on Facebook or sign our virtual guest book. The links for those can be found in the service notes below. Once again, welcome to worship. We are glad you're with us. From the power of our memory and history, with high hopes for the days that lie ahead, we gather to craft the destiny we share with one another. We gather with faith in the practice of democracy. We gather with hearts and minds open to the wisdom in every voice among us. Through our worship, may we dream and design a bold future. May we bring our best selves to this service, and may we dream these dreams and do this work with love. Come, let us worship together. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all. It is with deep sorrow that we announce the death of our beloved member, John Emery. John died on September 4th at the age of 87 after a fall in the home and a brief stay in the hospital. He was with his caretakers. A brief service for John was held at the Veterans Memorial Cemetery in Santa Fe. We will hold a service of memory and celebration for ourselves here at the church in the near future, and we will announce that soon. But now, as is our tradition in the congregation, I light our candle of life in memory of John Emery. Let us be together in silence. Please join with me now in a spirit of prayer and reflection. Eternal and beloved, gracious source of all life and all love, we enter into this moment of worship grateful for the time out of time that gives us pause to reconnect and become more fully present to ourselves, to our communities, and to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. May we be reminded in this moment of the basic tenets of our faith, the dignity of all people, our quest for justice and equality, our desire for freedom and peace, our vision of all life bound together, our quest for a world made fair with all her people one, our call to heal a wounded world. Let these ideals be written on our hearts so that we may carry them with us as we vote over the next month, as we speak with others in our communities, as we engage with the world around us day after day. May our time in this worship strengthen our hearts, strengthen our minds, and carry us through the week to come until we can enter into this time once more. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. Our story this morning is adapted from the Sufi mystic epic poem, The Conference of the Birds. Once upon a time, all the birds in the land decided they needed a leader for their community. A leader, they thought, would make their community stronger. Representatives of all the bird species gathered to discuss finding a leader. A leader will tell us the right things to do, said the robin. Our leader must be wise, said the owl. A leader must believe we are each important, big and small, said the sparrow. I want the leader to be caring, like a friend, said the dove. Yes, the leader should help us share and get along better, said the jay. The leader must make us feel safe, said the hawk. I know where you can find such a leader, said the hoopoe bird. It is the simorgh, and it lives far from here. The birds were very excited. They said they were willing to go anywhere to find such a leader. It might be dangerous, said the hoopoe. A few birds looked troubled, but all the birds voted to go find the simorgh. The hoopoe took off, and all the birds followed. They flew at night. They flew in sunshine. Days and days passed. Some birds got tired and left the group. Other birds were filled with doubt. How did they know the simorgh really existed? Only the hoopoe had ever heard of this bird. Some of the doubters dropped out, but others kept flying. One valley was filled with fiery mountains. All the birds were afraid. I am too small to make it over that mountain, lamented the sparrow. No, no, keep flying. We can make it together. We will help you. And they did. The strong flyers helped the weaker flyers. The birds with good vision helped find food for the group. Along the journey, the birds learned how to better respect and share and care for one another. It seemed that every bird had something special and unique to offer that made the journey easier. Finally, the hoopoe announced, "We are here." The other birds looked around in anticipation. Where? Where is the simorgh? We don't see it, they cried. Come, said the hoopoe, it's over here. And the birds stood beside the hoopoe and realized they were on the edge of a lake. They looked in, and they saw their own reflections, and then they understood. The simorgh was not another bird. The simorgh was all of them, and all of them were the simorgh. They remembered that each of them had something good and strong and special inside of them, and that each bird had gifts to bring to the community. They were all that was needed to keep the community strong. And they knew now that together, they could do anything. Our reading this morning comes to us from my friend and seminary classmate, the Reverend Bob Janis-Dilon. Let the artists win. I vote we let the artists win, the ones covered in paint from their last attempt to smuggle across the beauty of a bowl of fruit, the 14-year-old rapper learning to spit, throwing life's chaos on the rhythm wheel, uncovering the shapes that live on after the next break. I say we let the food bank volunteers win, the ones always carrying around their agenda for the meeting, waging campaigns to stock shelves with bread. I would like to see the nurses extend their string of victories, from the hospital bed to the nation's boardrooms, until we care for each other as if death were inevitable and mercy was the only thing that made the rounds bearable. I say we let the kindergarten teachers win as they raise up small edifices for the beauty words will never capture or reveal. Maybe even let the helpless drunkard win sometimes when she cries into her beer and declares it is all too much. I will let the grandmothers win when they tell the old stories that hold me in their keeping. And the children yelling, "Play, play," the ones who have already cost us so much of our final productivity, the only tyrants who can command the true attention of the wise. I want them to win too, again and again, without pity. And then, when the men with guns come, we can say, "I'm sorry, but whether you win or lose, it's never really been my game, sir. I have lost, and lost again, 1,000 wars of the heart, and those to whom I have waved the white flag, those to whom I have surrendered the whole and holy of my life, will never, never let me go."
In the evening, when shadows fall and gentle breezes sing sweet with nightbird's call, I sometimes wonder, I sometimes dream, and in my mind I see a world in harmony, and so I'm following that dream, I'm reaching for that dream, a dream of hope and peace for all the world to share. So I'll keep looking for that dream, and maybe someday soon, when others feel the way I do and want to have a better world, this special dream I'm dreaming will come true. We live together, we share the planet Earth, the land, the air, the water is common to our birth, but differences decide us, and so it seems to be. The world I'm looking for is only in a dream, and so I'm following that dream, I'm looking for that dream, a dream of hope and peace for all the world to share. So I'll keep looking for that dream, others feel the way I do and want to have a better world. This special dream I'm dreaming will come true. Why can't we live together in peace and harmony? Reach out to one another. It's up to you and me. So I'll keep following my dream. I'm reaching for my dream, a dream of hope and peace for all the world to share. So I'll keep looking for my dream, and maybe someday soon, when others feel the way I do and want to live a special dream, this special dream I'm dreaming will come true, come true.
The Sunday after the 2016 election, I stood in front of you all in the sanctuary with this coat on, with a giant safety pin tucked into its lapel, the first symbol of resistance of the last 4 years, a sign that I would stand up for the safety of individuals threatened by the first attempt to ban Muslims from this country. And the work of that safety only continued from there over the last several years. In the last 4 years, we have brought in people to teach us how to be interveners as we stand by and watch others threatened verbally or physically. We have engaged in a relationship with Lutheran Family Services to help out with aid for refugees being resettled here in New Mexico. I have stood before the county council to speak in favor of a resolution supporting our immigrant citizens here in our county. We have brought in the lawyers from the Santa Fe Dreamers Project to tell us what little we can do in our own sphere of power to help with the crisis of family separation here on our own state border. We have brought in refugees and shown films about their lives to try to connect to issues we do not understand. We have opened up this church space to all sorts of people within the congregation and without who are just trying to make sense of what is happening to the world and just trying to make a difference in their own small ways. And I have preached endless sermons on the topics of resistance and resilience, and I have stood before the community in vigil after vigil in shows of solidarity and lamentation of sorrow for the people of Las Vegas, for the tragedy in Charleston, for the shooting of the Tree of Life Synagogue, for the movement of Black Lives Matter over and over and over again. And I recite this all to you today not to make you despair. This is not a litany to make us relive any grief we have may have been made to feel over the last 4 years. I'm not here to add to your sense of fatigue about the world today, but I recite this list today to point out that the way we have lived into the call of our faith, the way we have worked the ministry of this never-ending and unshakable love that we are called to, the way we have done that has been aimed at the work of mitigating harm to the vulnerable. Doing whatever we can do, however small an action within our small sphere of power, to stand up for those whose lives are most endangered, who are most in existential risk by the current atmosphere. Now this is a worthy endeavor for our faith. This is work we should be doing. And even in our grief and even in our fatigue, we should feel proud of even the little things we have done to stand up for the most vulnerable, to stand for them, to stand between those at risk and the harm that is coming their way. My only real frustration these last 4 years is that we have not had enough time and energy to build forward, build into the fair and just and equitable world that we seek to create. It is nearly impossible to build up when we are spending all our time and all of our energy shoring up the foundations, chasing after and repairing the damage that has been done to our society with intent. One of the phrases I have heard over and over again in the last 4 years is that elections have consequences. And these last 4 years have proven that to be true. Elections have consequences to our country, to our small communities, to the work and the practice of our faith. 4 years later, we are on the eve of another election. And this time out, I don't think it is hyperbole at all to say that this election is a contest for the heart and the soul of our nation and our communities. This election will be a test of our collective conscience. Now, conscience is a word I have heard tossed about quite a bit in this past primary season. I'm hearing it still moving into our final election season, and I hear it tossed around a little too casually. I am going to vote my conscience, I hear. And yet what I hear behind those words so frequently is a sense that I will vote and choose the candidate who mirrors perfectly my own internal needs, my internal beliefs, my desires. I will select that candidate, or at least the one who says that they mirror all of those things. And if they do not mirror that perfectly, they do not have my vote. But friends, a conscience that contains only the individual, only the self, is no conscience at all. A conscience must move beyond the walls of our own self. This conscience we speak of, this word we use to describe some sort of internal moral compass, derives from words meaning knowledge with, a with understanding. But with what? What or who are we knowing with? The origin of that moral compass, the source of that little voice of right and wrong we talk about that resides inside our head, has been debated and recentered and relocated throughout human history. From the earliest days of our human history, that conscience was a knowledge with the divine, a divine sense of what was right and what was wrong, implanted in us at birth and speaking to our very souls. As we grew into the time of the Enlightenment, that divine voice was understood to be filtered through the capacity for human reason, until eventually the divine was eliminated from the equation completely, and our conscience was based in pure reason alone, said the philosophers. But the problem is, if we center just in our own reason, if we are living just inside our own heads, we can fool ourselves into walking down a path of toxic individualism. After all, we are frightfully talented at self-justification, and we can justify almost anything we want to do with ourselves through the tools of our reason. And reason is a tool that is easily misused, to the point where often we can mistake our own imperfect will, our own imperfect desire, for that which we think is right in all the world. In the mid-20th century, we witnessed the deadly consequences of conscience replaced by a self-justifying will exercised into power. Simone Weil, the French philosopher and fighter in the French Resistance, in her last book before her death wrote that for a society to be more just, obligation to society must take precedence over any of our own individual desires or individual wills. Weil posited that our sense of good conscience comes when we awake to those obligations to one another and to the ways that they benefit our own selves in the process of benefiting our whole society. Weil's contemporary and countryman Emmanuel Levinas puts it even more explicitly, saying that it is the welcoming of the other into our consciousness that is the essence of conscience. This admission of the other into our consciousness encourages our ego to accept the fallibility of assuming things about other people, to accept that selfish freedom of will does not, he says, have the last word. And in accepting these things, we come to realization of a transcendent purpose, the realization that I am not alone. In other words, there is no conscience without humility in the face of all humanity. The source of conscience is a moral knowledge held with the existence and acknowledgement of other real, individual, vulnerable humans. 8 years ago, in another election sermon, I stood before you to tell you who you should vote for. And I wasn't talking about candidates. I said you should vote for Angie, the homeless woman who lived outside my apartment in Chicago. Or you should vote for my high school friend Seth, who at the time had to fight tirelessly for just the right to visit his partner in the hospital. And that you should vote for my spouse and your spouse, for my kids and your kids. These are still today the people I carry with me into the polling place. These are the voices of my conscience. This is the source of my moral compass. And let me assure you, these are not the only voices. Each election day, and every day after that, and every day in between election days is a chance to vote day after day in favor of and in service of the most vulnerable, those whose very existences are threatened by the atmosphere created by irresponsible leadership. The work of my own faith since the last election is to vote daily for the vulnerable, to mitigate the harm coming their way, and to speak up in lamentation and in solidarity with the vulnerable so that I can keep them in the public common conscience. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for today, but I am pleading with you to keep the most vulnerable members of our human family in your mind's eye as you sit at the table and fill out your absentee ballot. Carry their images with you into the polling booth if you are braving voting in person this year. Carry them with you, because this is what it means to truly vote your conscience. Because if the conscience you claim cannot conceive of your choices having real consequences for other people, if the conscience you claim is so narrow it cannot admit another more vulnerable than you into it, if the conscience you claim is merely a reflection of your own individual desires, if you cannot see the forest that is burning right now for the log in your own eye, that is no conscience at all. It is simply ego. And if the last 4 years have shown us nothing else, it is the utter disaster that is wreaked upon a nation when it is ruled by nothing but ego. Your ballot will start arriving sometime this week. And friends, it is a referendum on the moral character of our nation. Let us please, please awaken to our obligations to each other. Let us admit the most vulnerable into our consciousness so that we may be able to say in truth that we voted our conscience. May it be so. As I mentioned in my midweek message this week, the first of our drop-in small group ministry sessions will take place on the 15th of this month. That's a Thursday evening at 7 p.m. We'll be holding that over Zoom. Small group ministry is a chance to engage in some spiritual exercise and some deep listening and some deep sharing with one another centered on our monthly themes. And the theme for October is, appropriately enough, deep listening. A good place to start. If you would like to take part or you want more information, keep an eye out for our announcements over email or the announcements that will happen in our virtual fellowship hall on Facebook. There will be more details as well as preparatory materials for the small group sessions. And as always, if you have any questions about the program, contact me with those questions at the church office. Before we close our service, it is time to give something of ourselves to the larger community we are part of. It is time for our offering. During the month of October, all of the offering will be given to our friends at Lutheran Family Services based in Albuquerque in support of their work on our behalf for refugees and asylum seekers building a new life in New Mexico. Please use the link in the service notes below or download the Givelify app to your phone or mobile device and select the Unitarian Church as your gift recipient. The offering will now be accepted. May what you give bring you joy and into deeper relationship with this community. Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.